Welcome back, you lovely lot, to Cowland on Cars, and you can tell from my informal seating position surrounded by these beautiful motor cars that we're going to do a question and answer session. I put out a Q&A because I get a lot of DMs. You guys ask a lot of very sensible, very intelligent questions. I could answer them all individually, and if I had more time, I probably would. But it makes sense to answer the more common ones collectively. Then if you all have the same question, I can give one answer, and hopefully it helps or informs more than one of you at the same time. So without further ado, let's steam into the questions. But if you do like this, by the way, if it does help you, if you find it interesting or informative or just gives you an insight into what I'm doing with telly, cars, YouTube, anything else, we'll do them more regularly. You tell me. Right, into the questions. Simon Redfern asks, is there going to be another series of Drew and You? Well, that would be in the hands of the TV gods. And also, to be fair, in the hands of Drew. I don't know if you've seen, Drew has actually put up a notice, a video, to say that he's going to have a bit of a retirement. I think he's kind of had enough of telly, which you can't blame him for. He's done 20-odd series of Salvage. He did 8 seasons of Salvage Hunters Classic Cars with me. And we were very lucky. We had a lot of fun making that show. We got to work with some of the most wonderful people in television, some of the best directors, some of the best technical crew, some of the best behind-the-scenes people. We were blessed. We really were. But to be fair to everybody who works in television now, and everyone will tell you this, TV, even in the last 2 or 3 years, isn't quite the same as it was 5 years ago. Budgets are being cut because obviously there's more competition for the time. It's harder for production companies to do TV the way they want to. You've got what we call the crown jewels, shows like Wheeler Dealers. They will always get the budget to do amazing cars and amazing world tours because they are number one. They know they're going to get the ratings that will bring the people in. If you're kind of the next one down or the next one down from that, like we were with Salvage, it's harder to justify spending big budgets. And my problem was, and Drew's problem was, when we went into doing restorations on those cars, we only really wanted to do them one way, and that was to do them properly. And in the case of something like the Jensen, we spent 6 figures doing that car. And understandably, people in the TV world, in the offices, the people in the suits, they want justification why you're spending so much money. And if you could achieve the same ratings on other shows spending less money, it makes an awful lot of sense for them to do that. So I would be surprised. I would be surprised if that show ever came back in that format, spending that amount of money. And in all honesty, unless I can do cars properly with such wonderful people to such a high standard, I'm not that interested. Unless it's something like, if you've been following me a long time, I'm sorry. But if you have, we did a show called Turbo Pickers way back in ancient history. Really interesting guy called Dave Southall and I did a show. The show had no budget, therefore the cars were ridiculously cheap. The jobs were ridiculously cheap, and it was kind of like quality bodging, but with a real honesty and openness, which kind of replicates what you can do when you're at home. So if I could do a show like that, I'd love to do another TV show. Great question. Danny Powell says, what do you exactly do for a job? You seem to farm most, if not all, of the work out. Well, yeah, I don't pretend to be a mechanic. I am very average mechanic. And when it comes to things like trimming, welding, painting, I am terrible. I can think of 100 people better than me. So my proper job, and this might answer some of the other questions later on as well, is I do all sorts of things. So I'm obviously a presenter, so I do a little bit of television. I also present a lot of corporate stuff, but I also direct and produce a lot of commercials for car companies. And my agency, which is called Promotive, looks after the social media, the asset production, the PR, all sorts of things, writing, copywriting, you name it, for loads of large automotive brands that you will have heard of. So that's my proper job. That's what brings the pennies in. And yeah, in terms of what I do in the workshop here, I'll have a potter, I'll have a go, but I'm very lucky because I've been in the motor trade for 30 years. I'll be honest, there isn't one job on a car that I don't know at least 2 people who are way better than me at. And I always believe in division of labour. If I get enjoyment out of a job, like if I'm washing a car or it's a basic job, I'll do it because I'll enjoy that. And I know that up to a standard, I can do a good job. But as soon as you get into anything like paint work, trim work, I'm just not good enough to satisfy my own standards. I know there's so many people out there that I've had the benefit and joy of working with for 20 or 30 years who will ace it. They'll charge me mates rates. And to me, it makes much more sense to go and direct a commercial and then use the money that I've earned for that to pay my lovely friends in the trade. So that's what I do. So you will see me working on the cars here. I generally work to a very low standard. As soon as it gets to an interesting job, I'll always farm that out because it'll be done better. And also I think it's probably more interesting for you to see the process by somebody that knows what they're doing rather than me, who generally doesn't. I know the process, but my level of execution will not be as good as the guys that have been doing it for 30 years. Another great question. Red90 says, when are you back on TV? Although YouTube does do better car content. It's an interesting question, so hopefully I've answered the TV one. I would go back if the right show could come up. I think YouTube is really interesting. The reason I've got into YouTube is I just found myself watching mostly YouTube. I think you guys have all realised this as well by the fact that you're here. YouTube's brilliant, isn't it? Because you can curate a feed that's exactly what you want. And what I really like about YouTube, if you want to watch a 15-minute video on how a gearbox comes apart, or even a 1 hour, 15-minute video, you can. YouTube allows niche audiences to find really interesting content that's exactly what they want and then curate a feed that's precisely what they want. And TV doesn't really allow you to do that. TV, we did a great example. Fiat 500, we stripped that to a bare shell, repainted it, well, after putting in probably, I don't know, 300 quid's worth of panels and probably a week's worth of work. That entire thing was edited down to 30 seconds. You'd get 7 or 8 YouTube videos out of that. I think YouTube does really allow a niche audience to go into much greater detail. For that reason, I love it. And hopefully, as we go on this journey together, I'll be able to do more of it with you. Gluten-free SR9858 says, German cars are over-engineered, but why are Japanese cars more reliable? Great question, because they're my 2 favourite kinds of cars, Japanese and German, in terms of reliability. I like Swedish cars too, you can probably tell. I think it's, with the Japanese, they've always worked to an incredibly high standard. Everything Japanese people make is normally phenomenal. But some of that, I think, is down to the culture. In Japan, it's considered really, really uncool to create or make something that either doesn't serve its purpose or fails. And there's literally a dishonour in making something that fails, and that brings dishonour on you, the person that's made it, and then the company that you work for. So I think Japanese people care. I think it's the only thing to say. Not that German people don't, because obviously they build beautiful cars, but I think Japanese people, there's almost a social pressure that if you're making anything, whether it's a watch or a radio or a motor car, you make the very best one that you can. And I love the fact that Japanese have this incredible inherent reliability. I've just been starting and moving some cars today. Everything Japanese started on the button. They're just brilliant cars. And also I think the Japanese are very clever at making things small that last for a long time. I think that comes back to the fact they were very much groundbreaking in the field of electronics. And also, generally speaking, not always, generally speaking, Japanese car electrics and electronics tend to be very, very good. And it's one of the reasons, obviously, because that's the lifeblood of the car, what runs through everything. And if your electrics work, generally speaking, a lot of other things will as well. Mark Homer 6357 says, are you doing a new series of Motor Traders repeats at the moment on D-Max? I think you mean Motor Pickers with Helen Stanley. Yeah, it's really funny because a lot of people have asked me saying, have you got a new series out? And what Discovery do, bless them, and I can't fault them. So obviously we make these series and then they repeat them on the channel they're on. So I think we made Motor Pickers for Quest. They'll then repeat it on Discovery Turbo. Then they'll repeat it on D-Max. They have lots of channels they can put them on. Absolutely fantastic, because obviously the longer those play on television, it's great for me because I get a lot of my corporate work for people like Subaru and Isuzu leveraged off the fact that I've obviously done some television work. So Discovery has a 10-year repeat policy. So I'm really sorry. You will be seeing those shows for at least another 7 years, at least. And yeah, every time they put them on a new channel, they can legally and correctly say, it's a brand new series on D-Max. It is new to D-Max, but it's not brand new. We did 3 series of Motor Pickers, me and Hells. And yeah, it's the same one. To be honest, if you haven't seen each episode, it's probably worth a watch. But if you have watched the whole lot, you are getting to see repeats. And if that's good, if you enjoy it again twice, fantastic. But if not, it is yesterday's lunch, slightly warmed up. But hopefully, it's still as tasty. Peter Warner says, where do you get funds to keep buying more cars? Peter, do you work for the Inland Revenue? Do you? Peter, as you've heard, I have a proper job as well. So my proper job is to run a press, PR, social media and film production agency. That's where the money comes from, to buy all of these things. And unlike a lot of people in television, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't take any drugs. So all of, allegedly, other people in television. So all of the money that I've earned, I've still got because I've used it to buy motor cars over the years. And also, you have to understand that being in the motor trade and sort of following market trends, I tend to buy cars at the very bottom of their curve. So some of the cars I've got now that look as if I've spent a huge amount of money, I haven't, because I bought them when they were very, very cheap. And that's the beauty of being a hoarder and also a car collector for very many years. You can get to ride those waves up and down, because some have gone down, most have gone up. And that's it. And the other thing is I just do a lot of hours. So a typical week for me is probably 6 or 7 days. A typical day is 12 to 14 hours. So they're between 60 and 70-hour weeks. I do graft. I've always grafted. And I always spend, apart from obviously, family, house, holidays, the important things that you must do as a dad, everything else goes into the cars, just as simple as that. And that's how I afford them. And also the big expensive stuff. So I've got a few nice bits. I don't really kind of flash that about on the channel too much. And I don't necessarily think people are that interested in seeing them. I've got things like a Porsche GTS, there's a Dodge Viper, there's a few chunky bits. And with those, I just finance them, is the honest answer. So if I can't afford a £50,000 car, and let's be honest, which of us can, I'll do it on the longest finance term that I can, and that'll bring it down to hundreds of pounds a month, which again, it's not a small amount of money, but for what it is, it's sensible. And then I pay that off, and then I've got that vehicle, which generally speaking, should have appreciated at least the cost of the finance plus the interest, and then I've got my money there sat as an asset. And then what I'll generally do is find another one and do it again and again and again. And that's over the last 20 odd years how I've managed to amass such a collection. They're either cheap cars bought at the bottom of their curve, or they're more expensive cars that I financed, eventually paid the finance off, but kept the car. Because of course what most people do is they'll buy and finance or pay for a nice car, finish with it, sell it, buy something else, and on they go. I just do that, but I don't sell the car. I just keep it and get another one. And that's how I've amassed quite so many. So there you go. That was our first set of questions. Thank you very much to everyone that wrote in. If I can answer any more, I'll try and do, I don't know, you tell me, how often do you want to see this kind of stuff? Or if you've got any more questions, put them in the comments below, and then I could do them in the next questions and answer. We can kind of grow it and grow it and grow it. I'll always try and be honest with you, and anything you need to know, I will tell you. But thank you for watching. Do like and subscribe. Please ring that bell. It makes a massive difference if you aren't a subscriber and you've enjoyed the content. If you do subscribe, the algorithm just goes mad, and then more of you will see it, which really helps me out. But thank you, and I'll see you next time.